Hello and welcome to Explain 11 and this series on procedures. On this episode we come to the abnormal procedures for this Aerobasque or Diamond DA-42 twin star. So first a disclaimer, I'm not a pilot, this is not an educational video, this is just a way for me to learn stuff. So by teaching it I learn stuff. If you can use something for it for flight simming, that's great, and if not, that's okay too. But it's not real aviation. This doesn't replace training, proper training with a flight instructor and someone who knows these things, which I don't. So that's basically the disclaimer. So hope you learned something. Hope you enjoy this. Gonna go look for my abnormal procedures page in our airplane flight manual. So I'm just gonna go through this and we'll look at the plane a little bit. I don't know if actually we'll turn stuff on, see if we'll look at it or not. We won't do any flying today anyway. So the first part is the precautionary landing. Landing of this type is only necessary when there is a reasonable suspicion that due to operational factors such as fuel shortage, with the condition etc., the possibility of endangering the airplane and its occupants by continuing their flight cannot be excluded. The pilot is required to decide whether or not a controlled landing in the field represents a lower risk than an attempt to reach the nearest airfield under all circumstances. If no level landing area is available, a landing on an upward slope should be sought. So precautionary landing, first select the appropriate landing area, consider the wind and then approach. If possible, the landing area should be overflown at a suitable height in order to recognize obstacles. The degree of offset at each part of the circuit will allow the wind speed and direction to be assessed. Advise ATC and then perform procedures according to normal procedures, approach and landing and touchdown with the lowest possible airspeed. If there's sufficient time remaining, the risk of fire in the event of collision with obstacles can be reduced as follows by a safe touchdown. After a safe touchdown, engine master both off, fuel, so engine master, these one both off, fuel selector both off, which they are here, and electrical master, which is this, which is off. So. Canopy in a cooling gap position. If takeoff was inadvertently done with the canopy in the cooling gap position, do not attempt to close the canopy in flight. Land the airplane and close the canopy on ground. So that's very important. If it's open, don't do anything, land and close it on the ground. Engine instrument indication outside of green range in G1000. So any of these outside the green range, even too cold or too hot, too much or too little. High RPM, so this one, I'm going to red line, this is about 2300. First reduce power on affected engine and keep RPM within green range using a power lever. If the above mentioned measures do not solve the problem, refer to defective propeller RPM regulator system, which is part of emergency procedures, which we'll look at on the next episode. And in that case, land at the nearest suitable airfield. If we have a problem with high coolant temperature, proceed according to emergency checklist for a left-right engine temp. If we have a problem with a low coolant temperature, check the G1000 for the left or right cool level caution message. So we'll see if we have low coolant fluid, which will be there in that case. Note is that during extended descent from high altitudes with low power setting, coolant temperature may decrease. In this case, an increase of power and a decrease in airspeed can help. If the left or right hand coolant level is caution message is displayed, reduce power on affected engine and expect loss of coolant. So that's the checklist for that. Oil temperature. If we have a too high oil temperature reading, we'll proceed to emergency checklist for left-right oil temp. So that's next episode. If the oil temperature is too low, we'll increase power and reduce airspeed. High oil pressure. So oil pressure is here, oil temp is here, oil pressure is here. Coolant temp there. Oil pressure here. If you have a high oil pressure, check oil temperature. So check press here, then go there, and check coolant temperature. We'll check those both. If the temperatures, if those two are within the green ranges, then expect a false pressure indication. Keep on reading temperature. So then it's probably something wrong with the measuring device. If the temperature are outside the green range of oil temp and coolant temp, reduce power on affected engine. Land at the nearest suitable airfield. Prepare for an engine failure in accordance with 376 engine failure in flight, which is a part of the emergency procedures. At low oil temperature, high oil pressure may occur, which could lead to an oil pressure warning. In this case, reduce the power setting until the warning disappears and conduct a warm-up with this reduced setting. So that's why it's important to reduce the power on affected engines to see if that's the problem. If we have a low oil pressure reading, we'll go to the emergency checklist with left or right oil pressure. Gearbox temperature, high gearbox temperature, proceed to emergency checklist, left or right and gearbox temp. Fuel temperature, if we have a high fuel temperature reading, temp here, we'll go to the emergency checklist again. You see, there are lots of going to the emergency checklist here. Left hand or right hand fuel temp. If we have a low fuel temperature, increase power on affected engine and reduce airspeed. At low engine temperature conditions and or at high airspeeds with low power settings, it can be assumed that the high above mentioned procedure will increase the temperature. If the fuel temperature does not return to the green range, perform a precautionary landing on the nearest suitable airfield. Prepare for an engine failure in accordance with the 376 engine failures in flight. So that's a check. So basically, you see the pattern. If it's high reading, it goes to the emergency checklist. If it's low, it's do something about it. Reduce power or increase power, usually. Next section is about voltage. If you have low voltage indication on the ground with the engines running, check that alternators are on, and check the alternators here, and check the circuit breakers that are in. If low voltage condition, low volts is still indicated on G1000 here, I'll terminate the flight preparation. Low voltage during flight, same thing, alternators check on, circuit breakers check, electrical equipment off if not needed. If low voltage caution still indicated on G1000, follow the procedures in 4B46 left or right alternator fail, which will be coming on later in this abnormal procedures part. So that's this section about the G1000 and failure notices and caution notices. If we have a message that says left or right ECU A fail, left right and an ECU A has failed or is being tested during ECU test procedures before takeoff checklist. Check. If the ECU A caution is on the ground and it's not a part of the test system, then terminate flight preparation. If ECU A caution happens during flight, in case of failure of electronic ECU engine control unit A, the system automatically switches to ECU B. But what we'll do is we'll do alternate air, which is down here. It's not simulated. Fuel pumps on, we don't have the fuel pumps. Circuit breakers check. Border switch, check to auto. If the ECU caution remains, land at the next suitable airfield. So next, not nearest, next suitable. An ECU fail caution is caused by various types of malfunctions. These include internal ECU problems, sensor failures, and insufficient performance of air, fuel, and electrical supply system. for instance, air filter icing. In addition, engine problems are observed and you troubleshoot. Okay. And the same with ECU B failure. Same procedure. Alternate air open, fuel pumps on. We don't have that circuit speaker check. Motor switch auto, and if it rains, land as next suitable airfield. So, same. Left or right hand fuel low. Fuel quantity was. Well, if we check that. As soon as the amount of usable fuel tank in the main tank is low, a caution message is displayed. The indication is calibrated for straight and level flight. The caution message may be triggered during turns which are flown with slip or while taxiing in curves. So that's good. It's straight and level. Prolonged uncoordinated flight can cause fuel starvation to the engine, resulting in loss of power. Return, well, it shouldn't be too long. Shouldn't do that anyway. Return coordinated flight, not more than half a ball side slip, 3 to 5% degrees bank. The fuel quantities left hand or right hand engines show remarkable different fuel quantities in flight. Expect loss of fuel on the side with low indication. Use crossfeed function to ensure fuel supply. So we don't have any fuel pump, but you set the fuel selector crossfeed to the engine with low fuel indication. So for instance, if we want to have more engines on the right hand side, and when we need to do left hand, we'll set this to crossfeed like so. So where you want the fuel to go, that's the side you put it on crossfeed. Low voltage caution, low volts. Left right in the engine bus voltage is too low, less than 25 volts. Possible reason is the fault in the power supply, alternator is off. We'll check that. And if it's alternators are on, then you can expect a failure both alternators and follow section in abnormal procedures, left or right hand alternator fail. And that's the next section. So left and right hand alternator failure. Left or right engine alternator has failed. Note that left-right alternator fail and unsafe may be temporarily triggered during ground operation with low power engine power setting. This indicates no system malfunction. One alternator fail. You go that alternator off, and that is off on the affected side. Bus voltage monitor and electrical computers reduce as practical. End of checklist. If both alternators fail, then you proceed to left-right alternator failure in the emergency procedures. 3.3.1. This is why it's important to have this on board. Go look at stuff if you have time for it. Left or right coolant level. We talked about this before. Left or right engine coolant level is low. Low coolant caution alert may indicate loss of coolant. This will subsequently lead to decreased engine cooling capability, loss of engine power due to engine failure. An unsafe engine instruments monitor. The indication is calibrated for straight and level flight. The caution message may be triggered during turns which are flown with slip while taxiing curve. So just one of that. Pitot failure, heat off. Pitot fail, pitot heating system has failed. Pitot heat off, pitot heating system is off. Pitot heat check on as required. The pitot heat caution message is displayed when the pilot heating is switched off or when the failure of the pitot heating system. Prolonged operation of pitot heating on the ground can also cause the pitot heating caution message to be displayed. In this case, it indicates an activation of the thermal switch, which prevents overheating of the pitot heating system on the ground. This is a normal function of the system, and after a cooling period, the heating system will be switched on automatically. So that's good to know. If we are flying in icing condition, we'll expect loss of airspeed indication. Leave the icing zone as soon as possible. It can also refer to the normal procedures for unintentional flight into icing, which we'll come to later. No, that's the emergency section. Stall heater fail off. Stall heat fail. Stall heat warning heat has failed. Stall heat off. Stall warning heat is off. Pitot heat check on as required. So that's the part. The system is the same as with the pitot heat. So turn on pitot heat. You get the stall warning heat as with that. as the same with that as the pitot, it can happen on the ground if it's overheating, and that will restore automatically when it cools. In icing condition, expect loss of acoustic stall warning and leave icing zone. Refer to 3.12.4 unintentional flight in the icing. Next part is left and right auxiliary fuel tank empty. We don't have a auxiliary fuel tank, so we'll have to look at that. Stick limit. Control stick limiting system variable elevator has failed. The variable elevator backstop is activated depending on the position of the power levels. That's why, you know, in the startup we'll went this and we'll put it full, and that in real craft it will pull forward slightly, which it doesn't do in here, but that's the part of that system. Both power levels are in the position of a power setting more than approximately 20% low load. B, at least one power level is in position of power setting of less than approximately 20% load. So, caution, the variable elevator backstop is inoperative. In case of stalling with power on, the handling qualities and stall characteristics are degraded significantly. Do not stall the airplane in any configuration. So, if you get that, you can't do stalls. You can't practice it either. If you have one of the power levels in below 20% load, the variable elevator backstop is active all the time, reducing the maximum elevator pull deflection. This results in reduced elevator capacity. In this case, it's important not to reduce airspeed below the minimum VREF, that is 84 knots, during the approach for landing, especially at loading conditions with forward location of center of gravity. Could also get an ocean here. In the next section is it's check gear. Landing gear is not down locked. Landing gear is not, so select it down, either by using landing gear or manual extension. Note: the check gear caution message is displayed when either the flaps are in the landing positions or one power lever is less than approximately 20% of the landing gear, and the landing gear is not down locked. So that's not simulated in this model actually. LOI, GPS integrity is insufficient for the current phase of flight, so that's good to know. Have to rely on other means of navigation. AHRS align, keep wings level. The AHRS altitude and heading preference system is aligning, so we'll keep it level. Failures in the flap operating system. So failure in the flaps in position indication or function. Flat position check visually, so we can do that easily on here because we see them. Airspeed keep in the white sector here, max 130 knots, and flap switch recheck all positions. And you modify the approach depending on the available flap settings, and also landing distances and all approach speeds and that sort of stuff. So if only up is available and you weigh above 1900 kilos, it's minimum 86 knots. If you weigh below 1900 kilos, it's 92 knots indicated with the flaps up. Oh, sorry, otherwise. Above 1992 and below 1986 knots. If you only have approach available, then it's below 1900 it's minimum 84 knots, above 1900 it's minimum 88 knots. And if you only have landing available, you perform a normal landing. So that's that. Failures in electrical rudder pedal adjustment. Runway of electrical rudder pedal adjustment option equipment. We don't have that installed. We'll check the circuit breaker if that happens and then pull that one so we don't have to worry about it. Basically disable the system. Failure in the hydraulic system. Continuous hydraulic pump operation. Landing gear indication lights check. Prepare for landing. Manual landing gear extension if we need that. So the hydraulic system operates the landing gear basically. That's the only thing to worry about. The landing gear might extend as the hydraulic system pressure decreases. Consider for higher aerodynamic drag resulting in degraded flight performance, increased fuel consumption and decreased range. Unscheduled maintenance action is required after landing. Hydraulic pump failure. Landing gear indication lights check. Prepare for manual landing gear extension. That's a part of the emergency procedures, by the way. And same as before. Starting engine with external power. Before starting engine, pre-flight inspection complete. Passengers instructed. Rear door closed and locked. Front canopy position 1 or 2. 2 is cooling gap, 1 is closed. For takeoff, the adjustable electrics installed. So adjustable backrest check. Rudder pedals adjusted. Safety harness all on. Power levels check idle. Parking brake set. I will do this. Power level check idle. Parking brake set. Avionics master check off. Gear selector down. Motor switch set to auto. Alternators check on. Fuel pumps we don't have it installed. Electric master set off. Engine master check off. So we'll this set to off. Propeller check clear, external power connected. So we'll go like this. I think no, actually that is, I haven't seen that before. Sorry, that's kind of cool. So now we have external power. When switching the external power unit on, the electrical heater and hydraulic gear pump may be activated itself for 5 to 20 seconds in order to restore the system pressure. Should the pump continue to operate continuously or periodically, terminate flight. There is malfunction in landing gear system. When switching the external power unit on, all the electrical equipment connected to left hand or right hand buses is powered. So I don't know, they should, I don't know if we still have to put the electrical master on. I guess so. Oh, okay, G1000 wait until powered up. It checks there, that's not available in this version. Fuel temperature is checked, so we'll go fuel temperature. We can do actually take off the start up here. Strobe lights are on. Electrical master is on. Engine master on the left hand side, so it's at left hand there. There's stuff here which we don't really see. Then we'll start engine. Go there. So that's the same. Don't operate the starter mode in more than 10 seconds. Announce engine system pace check OK normal range. Announce the starter check off. Announce the oil pressure check. So oil pressure is okay. Green. Circuit breakers, check all in. Idle RPM check 700 or ish, plus minus 30. It's actually holding that. Okay, good. External power disconnect, so go disconnect that, disconnected. And then we'll start the right hand engine with this ordinary procedure. So I'm gonna shut this up. Next section is lightning strike. Airspeed as low as practical. Do not exceed VAO. Grasp airplane controls firmly. Autopilot disengage. PFD backup instruments verify periodically. Continue flight on the VMC. Land at next suitable airfield. Due to possible changes in the airplane, obey the following instructions. Avoid abrupt and full control surface movements. Avoid high G loads on the airframe. Avoid high yaw angles. Avoid turbulent air as far as possible. Do not fly into areas of known forecast icing. And maintain VMC. Failures in the autopilot system. Autopilot disconnect. Yellow AP flashing on PFD. AP disconnect switch, depress and release to cancel disconnect tone. Pitch trim, retrim if necessary, use the trim wheel. And the autopilot disconnect may be accompanied by red box pitch or roll on the PFD indicating the access which has failed. The autopilot cannot be re-engaged with either of these annunciators present. So handfly. Autopilot overspeed recover, yellow max speed on PFD. Power level, reduce power. When overspeed condition is corrected, autopilot reselect vertical mode if necessary. Overspeed recovery mode provides a pitch up command to decelerate the airplane at or below the maximum autopilot operating speed of 180 knots. Overspeed recovery is not active in altitude hold or glide slope mode. Loss of navigation information, yellow arc, yellow VOR, VAP, GPS or loc flashing on the PFD. If navigation signal is lost while the autopilot is tracking it, the autopilot will roll the airplane wings level in default roll mode. Autopilot select header mode, controller, nav source select valid nav source. Autopilot select nav on mode, controller. If the instrument approach at the time of navigation signal is lost, missed approach procedures execute. So if we are on approach. Autopilot out trim will get a yellow AIL, ELI, RUD, or on the PFD. Do not attempt to overpower the autopilot in the event of pitch mistrim. The autopilot servos will oppose pilot input and cause pitch trim to run opposite the direction of pilot input. This will lead to a significant out-of-trim condition resulting in lack of control stick force when disengaging the autopilot. Be prepared for significant sustained control forces in the direction of the annunciator arrow. For example, an arrow pointing down indicates nose down control stick force be required upon autopilot disconnect. Momentary elimination of the ELE minus+ indication during configuration large airspeed changes is normal. AP disconnect switch, depress and hold while grasping controls stick firmly. Airplane attitude maintain and control. Pitch trim, retrim, autopilot second base is full, AP switch release. Following an autopilot order trim or manual electrical trim system malfunction, do not engage the autopilot or operate the manual electrical trim until the cause of malfunction has been corrected. That's the same with rudder. Rudder trim, verify slip skid, indication is center trim is necessary. Control stick grasp firmly, and then AP is turn it off and autopilot re-engage if lateral trim is re-established. Flashing yellow mode annunciator, abnormal mode transition, those not initiated by the pilot or normal sequencing of the autopilot will be announced by flashing disengage mode in yellow PFD on the PFD. Autopilot mode control, select non-vertical mode, autopilot disconnect and continue manually or execute this approach. Loss of lateral, that's in vertical mode. Loss of lateral mode, autopilot mode control, select non-lateral mode, autopilot disconnect and do an mixed approach if you are on an approach. See. And there's which system you lose on the autopilot. If you lose the HARS, and the autopilot disconnects and autopilot yaw damper and flight director is inoperative, manual electrical trim is available. Heading function of the HRS, the autopilot will remain engaged with loss of the heading mode. MFD, the autopilot will remain engaged with limited functionality. PFD, the autopilot disconnects and autopilot and flight director are inoperative. Manual electrical trim is available. GI number 1, the autopilot disconnects and autopilot flight director, manual electrical trim are inoperative. GI number 2, the autopilot disconnects and autopilot and manual electrical trim are inoperative. Flight director is available. GPS number 1 and 2, the autopilot and flight director operates in nav modes only. Localize back course VR and V vertical up with reduced accuracy. ADC, the autopilot disconnects and autopilot is inoperative. The flight director is available except for air data modes, alt, vertical speed, flight change mode. Manual electrical trim is available. Oh god, this is a really long chapter. Next section is left or right auxiliary fuel transfer. We don't have that installed. So that was the last part of the abnormal procedures section of the airplane flight manual. That was a lot. I hope you if download the AFM in the links in the description and read through it as we go through it. Just a suggestion. I hope you learned something. I learned a lot by doing this. And on the next episode, we're going to look into emergency procedures. So, and then we're gonna actually go and do some flying again, and do some one engine starts, restarts, and shuts downs, and that sort of stuff. And that should be interesting. So, I'm Andy. If you like this channel, please subscribe. If you like this episode, please hit the like button, leave a comment. And I hope you see you next time when we go through the emergency procedures for the DA-42 Twin Star in Flight Simulator. So, have a great day. Take care. See you soon. Bye bye.